Tonight, Melbourne hospitals urging Victorians to stay away from emergency departments as they face extreme COVID pressure. Long queues for rapid tests, with the Prime Minister urged to make them free. Small business facing a new COVID crisis, forced to close because so many staff are sick. A driver accused of deliberately running down a scooter rider in Melbourne's north. Southeast Queensland hit by monster seas, ruining holidays. And Glenn McGrath's race to make the pink test for his late wife.
Live from Melbourne, 7 News with Mike Amor starts now.
Good evening. Hospitals in Melbourne's west are urging Victorians to avoid using their emergency departments as they face extreme pressure, with Omicron cases hitting a new daily record. ICU admissions are stable, but health bosses are bracing for worse to come and can't rule out the return of some restrictions.
Inundated because of Omicron, Western Health's 3 hospitals took the extraordinary measure of pleading with people to stay away. Our emergency departments at Sunshine, Footscray and Williamstown hospitals are currently under extreme pressure. Please do not attend the ED unless absolutely necessary.
All of our emergency departments are facing unprecedented demand.
That's because in just 3 days, 23,000 Victorians have tested positive.
In the first 3 days of this new year, we've had more cases already than all of 2020.
A new record of 8,577 new cases today, 1,500 more than yesterday. That's from just 44,000 tests, a positivity rate previously unheard of.
We're now seeing 1 in 5 cases who are being tested in our PCR system is now positive. That's a 10-fold increase in the space of the last couple of weeks.
Those in hospital rose 19 to 491, while intensive care admissions are stable. But in New South Wales, where they had almost 21,000 new cases, hospital admissions have jumped to over 1,200, and those in ICU nearing 100.
And if you work on the basis that we're a week or 2 behind where New South Wales are, these are not good prospects to be looking at over the course of the coming month.
That's why they'll never say never to reimposing further restrictions like hospitality density limits.
We don't rule out the prospects of adding or indeed subtracting.
If you implement restrictions or precautions early, then you're less likely to have to do something more drastic down the line. So would I recommend density restrictions? Yes.
It's almost impossible to buy rapid antigen tests around Victoria. The government expects several 100,000 of its 34 million order to arrive later this week, but is wary of international freight.
Until we see them on the tarmac, we'll be a little bit sceptical.
It's been a frustrating time for Victorians. Long waits in queues for PCR tests, long waits for results. Some centres were closed over the weekend because of the heat and holidays. Until recently, 90% of results came back the next day. But because of the huge numbers, 50% take longer than 2 days.
So I'd like to apologise to everybody who's waiting for your PCR test result.
More than 10% of eligible Victorians have now had booster shots, but tomorrow the program ramps up when 1 million more become eligible because the gap between second and third doses is narrowed to 4 months. The aim to give 300,000 people boosters every week.
Because that's the only way we will avoid significant numbers of people ending up in hospital over the weeks ahead.
And to breaking news, Nick McCallum, there's already been a setback to vaccine rollout for children.
That's right, Mike. It's a technical issue. Originally, it was planned that from tomorrow morning, parents and guardians could go online and book the first vaccination for children aged 5 to 11. But Microsoft now reports a major technical issue, and that online booking system is going to be pushed back at least 24 hours. But from tomorrow, the booster system does fire up here at the Royal Exhibition Building and the 5 other major hubs. They'll operate 12 hours a day, 7 days a week. And also from Wednesday, 28 pop-up vaccination hubs will come online right around Victoria. Mike?
Live in Carlton with that breaking news, Nick McCallum, thank you. Scott Morrison is under growing pressure to provide free rapid tests for everyone. The do-it-yourself kits are flying off shelves and prices are continuing to rise. But the Prime Minister says the government can't pay for everything.
In pharmacies across the country, staff can't restock the shelves fast enough. Even with limits of 2 per customer, Chemist Warehouse is selling 500,000 rapid COVID tests a day. Demand has exploded since Scott Morrison announced a shift away from the traditional PCR tests to the DIY kits. But he's resisting calls to follow the UK's lead and make them free for everyone.
You just go to your chemist or doctors and just grab a whole handful.
Instead, the government has agreed to split the cost of the tests bought by the states, which are being handed out at no cost to people identified as close contacts, with plans to make them cheaper for pensioners. For everyone else, prices start from about $15.
We're at another stage of this pandemic now where we just can't go round and make everything free.
But with Omicron cases soaring and rapid tests in short supply, price gouging is becoming a serious problem. And Labor says people are now going undiagnosed.
This is a public policy failure, the like of which we haven't seen in this country before.
With stock levels expected to stabilise over the coming weeks, the head of Chemist Warehouse is calling on the federal government to drop the GST from the take-home kits to make price less of a barrier to getting a test.
That's something the government, I'm sure, could do overnight to make them more affordable.
We're very happy to do that here, but it would require the states to sign off on it because they forego that revenue.
And that may take some convincing. Rob Scott, 7 News.
And the Omicron outbreak is creating a critical staff shortage as thousands of Victorians are forced into isolation. It's become so bad for some businesses they don't have the staff to open their doors.
One business owner's 4 cafes forced to close. The impact of rising Omicron cases in Melbourne's workforce.
It's just frustrating when every single staff member is either, a close contact or getting COVID.
Julian Moosey says so many of his staff can't work, it's almost like another lockdown.
And the constant, close, reopen, close, reopen. It hurts a lot. Yeah, we've got, obviously, a lot of overheads.
The risk is not of hospital beds or places being overwhelmed, particularly ICU, particularly more so ventilation, but always in terms of balancing workforce.
From hospitality to retail, businesses wanting to cash in on post-Christmas sales are being forced to shut up shop.
It's a day-by-day proposition at the moment.
As the state records over 38,000 active cases and over 50,000 are forced into isolation.
Skills shortages have been an ongoing challenge for retailers through the pandemic, but now we've got the new pressure of these isolation requirements with high caseloads.
Authorities admit our growing case numbers mean they're not doing the same detailed contact tracing of recent months, but they're reminding us to not be complacent and continue checking in.
The QR codes remains an important thing, particularly for outbreak settings, and we can't predict which location next is going to become a significant outbreak of real concern.
Estelle Grieping, 7 News.
Australia has a new COVID cruise ship. Passengers are being kept on board the Coral Discoverer in Hobart after 2 of their shipmates tested positive. Around 60 passengers and 30 staff are unable to leave the ship while contact tracing continues for the next 2 days. Tasmania reported 466 COVID infections in the past 24 hours. Detectives are treating a shock hit run in Melbourne's north as a targeted attack. They claim a 45-year-old man deliberately drove into his victim as he rode an electric scooter to the shops.
Brendan Lazaro is accused of intentionally driving his Commodore into a man on a Campbellfield street, crossing onto the wrong side of the road and slamming into his 45-year-old victim from behind, who was riding a stand-up electric scooter. Today, Lazaro faced Melbourne Magistrates Court as it emerged police believe the 2 men had a loud argument outside the victim's nearby apartment minutes earlier on Saturday afternoon. The 45-year-old from Dallas has been charged with offences including dangerous driving causing causing serious injury, intentionally causing serious injury, failing to stop and render assistance, possessing cannabis and bail offences, and didn't apply for bail today. The victim remains in the Royal Melbourne Hospital in a critical condition. His family told 7 News he's on life support with head injuries and a broken back and might be brought out of an induced coma today or tomorrow. Police say Lazaro stopped momentarily, but not to check on his victim, instead heading into a nearby car park to remove the scooter from under his car. Officers arrested him around 5 yesterday afternoon in Brunswick, but are yet to reveal why they believe he targeted his victim. Brendan Lazaro is back in court in May. The police prosecutor explained the delay is because investigators want to do a reconstruction of the hit run, and that usually takes 12 weeks. Paul Dowsley, 7 News.
A Victorian man is one of 4 people arrested over a fire at Old Parliament House. The 30-year-old has been charged with arson and damaging Commonwealth property. The front doors and portico of the historic building were badly damaged in the blaze during an Indigenous protest. Task force investigators led by Australian Federal Police are not ruling out further arrests. The massive storm system lurking off Queensland is generating giant waves, hammering beaches. In the peak of the holiday season, dangerous flooding is now setting in along coastal hotspots, and Brisbane hasn't been spared.
The Gold Coast, normally a surfer's paradise this time of year. Woohoo! But these waves were moving more than just boards.
There goes the container.
Ex-tropical cyclone Seth is leaving a mess across southeast Queensland's beaches.
Big, huge, it's unbelievable.
The cyclone has been downgraded to a tropical low, but we are seeing extremely rough weather.
It's being felt up and down the coast with waves of up to 8 metres.
We've already had a death of a father yesterday on the Sunshine Coast, 49-year-old man trying to save his son.
Beaches are closed. Please do not put your life at risk.
Streets are flooded in Brisbane and on the Gold Coast.
It happens every real king tide.
On the Sunshine Coast, bike lanes transformed into swimming lanes. Bribie Island was also carved up. Sand was swept away and trees were uprooted. Seth's fury is also being felt south of the border.
Coastal conditions that are experiencing in southeast Queensland are definitely making their way and felt in northeast New South Wales as well.
The system is sitting around 350 kilometres off Brisbane's coast. It's expected to return to shore by the end of the week, but weaker.
It does sound dramatic. It's really not going to be too intense.
We may see the surf pick up again later in the week.
Despite the warnings, for many, these waves proved too tempting to avoid.
Today is big, huge, and look at that all the way, but it's beautiful.
Robert Avadia, 7 News.
A boat fire in a Brighton driveway sent smoke billowing across the Bayside suburb. More than 20 firefighters were called to an Oxford Street home to find the parked boat on fire. Flames spread to the house and garage and threatened nearby properties before it was brought under control. Passengers on the long-awaited Melbourne Airport rail link could face an $18 surcharge to ride to Tullamarine, and that's on top of the Mikey fare. The Andrews government says the fee is still being finalised, but transport experts believe it's on target.
A new look at the future of travel to Tullamarine, the $10 billion airport rail link set to relieve freeway pressure and
to make sure we can provide frequent, accessible, available services.
A leaked documents revealed just how much that trip could cost, and it's already come under fire.
You might find it cheaper to get a taxi, and the danger is that we end up with an airport rail link that not that many people use.
On top of a 2-hour Mikey fare, passengers will be up for an $18 surcharge, bringing the fare to just over $22.
If you're travelling a short distance or you're travelling in a group, it adds up pretty quickly.
But the fare compared to the Skybus, nearly $20 one way and $32 return.
We should expect travel to the airport to have that sort of price, given the demands involved.
Melbourne is one of just 18 cities around the world that has a busy airport but doesn't have a rail link, adding extra traffic to our already congested roads. The route has also been criticised, with services set to run via Sunshine Station before arriving in the CBD.
It's not very competitive against the car. Tullamarine Freeway is almost direct to Melbourne CBD, whereas the route that's been selected is a dogleg.
The government says they are still finalising ticketing prices as the initial airport rail link construction gets underway. The project is due for completion in 2029. Rochelle Brown, 7 News.
Australian cricket legend Glenn McGrath is still holding out hope of making it to the pink test in honour of his late wife, even though he's tested positive to COVID. McGrath is isolating and pinning his hopes on a negative result as more high flyers are caught up in the chaos.
The third Ashes showdown was the rapid test we all got to enjoy for free. But the Aussies continue to pay a COVID price. First, Travis Head, now Cricket Australia boss Nick Hockley, but perhaps the cruelest case is the sport's most charitable man.
Hopefully return a negative sort of rapid test, hopefully on the day one of the test match.
Glenn McGrath missed today's launch of his pink test, but is determined not to miss the day most important to him.
I think the planets have to align.
We're heartbroken. He can't be here. This is such an important moment for him.
The event hopes to brighten up the darkness of COVID by turning the SCG into a sea of pink and smash last year's fundraising record of $3.2 million to help families and mothers like Annette Hansen.
38 at the time, and I was nearly pregnant. I was just almost 3 months along when I accidentally felt a lump in my breast.
The McGrath Foundation helped her defy the odds.
This year, the event hopes to sell more than 240,000 virtual seats, which is the amount of people that can fill the SCG over a 5-day series.
To cover the care of almost 3,500 patients and their families. Bill Hogan, 7 News.
Let's hope he can make it. Jackie Felgate is here with more on the Ashes, and Jack England is on red alert.
Hello, Mike. Yes, one Aussie star says he's primed for a big score. His bold prediction is coming up as Josh Hazlewood is put to the test in the nets with Scott Boland ready and waiting. Ash Barty is inspired by the Aussies taking in some fielding practice and having a kick at the footy. We'll hear more from the world number one shortly. And Melbourne teenager Josh Giddey enters the history books after a starring role for the Thunder. And Mike, chaos in the NFL too as a star storms out and quits midway through the game.
Oh, that's dramatic. OK, see you soon. Thanks, Jack. Melbourne's in the grip of a rental crisis, putting pressure on prices. Up next, why some landlords are calling it quits and selling up. Plus, Victoria's holiday heartache, 6 drownings since Christmas. Prince Andrew facing a royal snub as secret documents are set to go public. And coming up, the push to keep older Australians working for longer. Drownings on Victorian waterways have skyrocketed this summer with 6 deaths since Christmas Day. Paul Dowsley is at Port Melbourne Beach, and Paul, lifesavers say people aren't taking the risks around water seriously.
And that relaxed attitude is killing people, Mike. In the space of just a few hours yesterday at Carrum Beach, surf lifesavers pulled 14 people from the water near the mouth of the Patterson River. They say it's so lucky that no one there died. One was taken to hospital, but there was a death yesterday, a man in the Jellybrand River on the Great Ocean Road. Also yesterday, the body of a 7-year-old boy was found in the Snowy River near Orbost. He had gone missing the day before. On New Year's Eve, the body of a man who went missing while swimming on Christmas Day on the Murray River was found. Last Thursday, a woman was swept into rough waters near Kilcunda. She drowned, plus a toddler died after falling into a Footscray pond. And on Christmas Day, a man drowned at Newport Lakes Reserve.
Make sure that you actually designate a parent or an adult person to be watching the children. Don't think that someone else is doing it.
In this financial year so far, so that's about 6 months, 25 people have drowned. The annual average, Mike, is 20.
Terrible toll. Paul Dowsley, thank you. Victoria is facing a rental crisis, with landlords selling their investment properties because it's more trouble than it's worth. Homeowners say it's no longer viable because changes to the law have cost them money and taken away their rights.
When the ban on evictions ended in March, Meena Prasad was hopeful she'd start to see regular rent again, but her tenant still owes thousands of dollars.
When you give your property to somebody, you expect rental income.
like everybody else.
Last March, the state government introduced 130 rental reforms, including giving tenants the power to install picture hooks, replace curtains and attach child safety devices. But it's also now much harder to ask a good or bad tenant to leave, and it's taking months to get a hearing at VCAT.
You always try and find a fair and reasonable outcome for both parties, but there are so many owners who are struggling.
They're giving more rights to the tenants than the landlord.
Some owners say having an investment property is now more effort than it's worth.
If I want to rent it more, I would think twice. That's the reality of it.
A growing number of landlords are putting their property on the market or moving in to take back possession, meaning there are fewer places to lease, sending rents through the roof.
If prices are going up, you've got people already living on the breadline, 2 years of a difficult period, not working, pay reductions, eating through their savings. They just can't afford to pay more.
The state government says the rental reforms strike a fair balance for tenants and landlords in the wake of the pandemic, but concedes it could take some time for things to return to normal at VCAT. Ashley Kanowski, 7 News.
Trouble is deepening for Prince Andrew. There's now speculation he could be stripped of titles if he loses a sexual assault case. In the coming hours, his legal team will see once secret documents that they hope could still end the case.
His future is set to play out in a New York court this week, but at home, Prince Andrew is facing a royal snub. Reports crisis talks are being held behind palace doors, with royal aides debating whether the Queen's son should be stripped of his title, the Duke of York, if he loses the sexual abuse lawsuit against him. His accuser, Virginia Giuffre. The 38-year-old claims she was trafficked by convicted pedophile Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell to have sex with the prince back in 2001 when she was 17. She also claims Epstein abused her. In 2009, Giuffre and the financier came to a confidential settlement agreement in a separate civil case. That agreement is set to be unsealed tomorrow. It's believed the details of that deal will be crucial to the prince's defence when his lawyers present their case to a New York judge. They claim the agreement shields the Duke from litigation. The hearing set down for this week will decide the future of the lawsuit. The prince has consistently denied the accusations, but pressure is building on him to step away from royal life for good, with some saying his former friendship with Maxwell, now a convicted sex trafficker, can no longer be ignored. In New York, Miley Hogan, 7 News.
And Jane Bunn joins us now. And Jane, temperatures have certainly dropped since our hot year.
Like a cooler breeze is blowing through. It's 37 on Saturday, just 20 today. In the last 30 days, we've had only 6 millimetres of rain. Now, La Nina hasn't disappeared, but high pressure is blocking it from affecting Victoria. That pattern changes this week. We'll have lots of tropical moisture running down here into low pressure. Slow moving, bringing a return to proper rain. And as this is La Nina, there is the potential for heavy rain and flash flooding. Now, all of that begins on Wednesday. I'll have the full details after Sport, Mike.
OK, see you then. Thanks, Jane. A holiday escape has left a family stranded in Fiji. Up next, what they want you to know if you're planning on an overseas trip. Plus, the Queen left devastated by another death. Fire ripped through South Africa's parliament, the sprinklers failed and the roof collapsed. And the unexpected link between a diabetes drug and heart attacks, uncovered by Melbourne scientists. A house fire in Point Cook threatened surrounding properties last night. The occupants weren't aware of the blaze upstairs until neighbours banged on their door.
The flames were really bad. We didn't know whether it would affect the other houses next door as well.
Everyone got out okay and fire crews controlled the blaze within half an hour. Positive COVID cases have turned an Australian family's dream Fijian holiday into a nightmare. Tonight they're separated and stuck in hotel rooms with no idea when they'll be able to come home.
Fiji. Perfect one day, terrifying the next.
There's no way of getting in contact with any of the staff in the hotel.
The holiday from hell for Jacqueline Hoy's family, locked in the grips of COVID-19.
I feel sick. I feel sick in the stomach every day. I'm not eating. I just can't. I need to get home.
After testing positive to the virus, she's now stranded, isolating for 10 days. COVID test lost, no running water, and her partner forced to sleep in the hallway, all part of the nightmare.
We sat here overnight, 2 whole days.
Jacqueline and her daughter are covered by travel insurance, not her partner, who is COVID-free.
We just come to get some sanitizer.
I can't see my partner for 10 days, maybe 17. Who knows?
This her hotel's master list of who is COVID positive and when they'll be released.
Unfortunately, in the current climate, this is not an isolated incident. Many Australians still working their way through the minefield that is both travel insurance and travel quarantine, something that's been simplified on the domestic front.
Each state now bringing in a 7-day isolation rule, then test negative, you're free to travel. A far cry from freedom in Fiji.
Obviously, we've had some clients who have COVID who are overseas, so they're unable to travel back. So we're able to assist them.
Today, I'm accepting the fact that we're not getting out of here anytime soon. And who knows what's going to happen in days to come.
Liam Tapper, 7 News.
South Africa's parliament has been badly damaged by fire a day after the nation celebrated the life of Archbishop Desmond Tutu. One man is now in custody over the arson attack, with politicians describing it as a sad day for democracy.
Flames burning high above the roofline. Thick black smoke joining the famous Table Mountain on Cape Town's skyline. South Africa's 138-year-old parliamentary complex on fire. Firefighters arrived well before automatic alarms were triggered. The sprinkler system failed too, as multiple blazes took hold above both chambers of Parliament.
This is a very sad day for our democracy because Parliament is the home of our democracy.
MPs say the National Assembly debating chamber has burned down and the roof has collapsed. In recent years, there's been proposals to move the Parliament from its historic home in Cape Town to Pretoria. The President called this a terrible, devastating event.
I believe somebody is being held right now and they are being questioned. But we need to go a lot deeper into how this type of event can take place.
A 49-year-old will face court tomorrow. In London, Hugh Whitfeld, 7 News.
It seems no place on Earth is immune to COVID. Researchers in Antarctica are now dealing with an outbreak at Belgium's Princess Elizabeth Polar Station. At least 16 of 25 staff have caught the virus. The cluster has taken hold despite all staff passing PCR tests, quarantining and living in one of the most remote places in the world. Thousands have defied crowd bans to protest in the streets of Amsterdam. Riot police attempted to break up crowds. Even a police dog was seen taking down one protester. The Netherlands went into a sudden lockdown on December 19 to stop the spread of Omicron. And the Queen is mourning the death of one of her closest confidants, her long-time lady-in-waiting, Lady Diana Farnham, dying aged 90. Lady Farnham's been at the Queen's side since 1987, even stepping in for Prince Philip while he was unwell during Her Majesty's Diamond Jubilee last year. Lady Farnham's death ending a difficult year for the monarch. A dog has been rescued after it was swept away and then buried by an avalanche. Nearby skiers helped look for the canine, named Apollo, and used probe poles to search through the snow.
I found him.
You found him?
I found him, yeah.
Hey! You're okay. A little scared?
Other than an injured leg, Apollo is said to be doing well, with his owners saying the rescuers are heroes. Researchers have made a surprise discovery in the fight against diabetes. A class of drugs used to treat patients with the disease can also prevent heart attacks.
Prevention is better than a cure. Just ask Professor Karl-Heinz Peter, whose job it is to save the lives of dozens of heart attack patients each week.
We try to treat patients as soon as possible, but often we are still too late.
But there's a class of drugs prescribed to lower the blood sugar of people with type 2 diabetes. It could be the answer to improving heart health.
In our study, we have really for the first time shown that it can protect against heart attacks.
To find out how, a team of researchers replicated the disease in mice.
We now understand why diabetes increases the risk of a heart attack and how this drug prevents this.
People with diabetes are 4 times more likely to suffer a heart attack, but this could change the game.
We might be able to go the next step and prevent heart attacks with these drugs.
There are currently only a limited number of drugs proven to prevent heart attacks, and while this one has shown promising signs in diabetic patients, further clinical trials are needed to determine its effectiveness in the wider population.
That's the exciting part, I guess, that in years to come we may find that these medications have got further benefits beyond just for those with diabetes.
Sonia Marinelli, 7 News.
Pensioners are pushing for a shake-up to the rules. Up next, why many want to return to work without being penalised. Also, the hunt for a destructive dancer wanted for cutting loose on a police car in Melbourne's west. Closing in on the surprising source of a wildfire emergency. And buying in bulk pays big dividends for Costco. Bulk buy megastore Costco has posted a record profit, raking in close to $3 billion in Australia. The company's 13 Australian stores were able to stay open right through COVID restrictions because they sell groceries as well as clothes and other merchandise. Police are hunting for a New Year's reveller wanted for cutting loose on a patrol car with a destructive dance. Police discovered the damage just before midnight when they returned to the vehicle in Nelson Place in Williamstown. The wanted man was wearing a beige baseball cap. Investigators are a step closer to the source of Colorado's worst wildfire disaster. They've narrowed it down to a single neighbourhood where a shed on the property of a religious sect was seen burning.
The snowfall would almost be beautiful if it weren't covering entire communities burned to the ground. Snow has extinguished the threat of flames, but made finding possessions or attempting to clear the ruins impossible for now.
The scenes are still hot. They're still, deep in debris, hot debris.
Today, families who'd fled Colorado's horror fire fronts were allowed back. The shock is overwhelming.
I can buy new books, I can buy new furniture, but it's really hard to build back a community. I'm sad for my kids that they're going to lose all this.
One of nearly 1,000 homes gone.
It's tough. I mean, you spend 30 plus years of your life there and it's all gone. I mean, it's ashes.
Investigators have narrowed the source to a single neighbourhood and are looking at this video.
That's somebody's barn.
A shed alight on the property of a local religious sect, seen burning the day the wildfires exploded. Of the 3 people listed as missing, some good news.
One of those persons has been accounted for alive and well.
It's feared the remaining 2 haven't survived. Emma Dallymore, 7 News.
There are growing calls tonight to scrap financial penalties for aged pensioners who choose to work. Advocates say it would not only give older Australians more money to live off, but fill critical labour shortages.
At 80, Yvonne Breitkrutz's passion for teaching remains strong. She still works the odd day as a casual.
I'd like to work a lot more often because I think I'm still a good teacher.
She can't afford to. For every dollar a pensioner earns over $240 a week, they lose 50 cents from their fortnightly pension.
I can do only 1 day in 3 weeks or lose my pension or part of my pension.
On top of that, there's tax, so most pensioners don't bother.
There's a massive disincentive for working in Australia.
National Seniors Australia is calling for employment income to be exempt from the income test for pensioners with limited savings or assets, saying it would give them more financial security while filling labour shortages as the population ages.
We've got hundreds of thousands of people who would be willing to do more work, and yet we're penalising them.
Mark McBrighty employs dozens of pensioners as carers.
It can be a little frustrating for scheduling staff when people say, look, I can't afford to work.
Government figures show less than 3% of Australia's pensioners receive employment income, compared to 25% of those in New Zealand, where pensions are unaffected by earnings from work.
If an older Australian works more, guess what? They pay more tax.
Advocates urging both the major parties to take the proposed reform to the federal election. Alex Lewis, 7 News.
Jackie Felgate is back with sport, and Jack, an old-fashioned bowl-off in Sydney ahead of the fourth test.
Hello, Mike. Yes, indeed. Scott Boland is doing all he can to hold his spot, but Josh Hazlewood is ramping up preparations as Steve Smith sends an ominous warning to England. Some fielding practice and a kick of the footy has Ash Barty primed to rewrite the Oz Open history books. A Melbourne teenager wows the world with a record-breaking performance in the NBA. And the shirtless meltdown that ended an NFL star's career midway through the game. Welcome back. Steve Smith says he wants to keep his foot on the throat of England heading into the fourth test at the SCG. The Aussie vice-captain admits he's underperformed so far in the Ashes, while Josh Hazlewood spent the day sharpening his skills for a likely return.
Both teams donned pink to support the McGrath Foundation's fight against breast cancer. By his superhuman standards, Steve Smith's in the red.
It's been tough to get rhythm and get into a groove.
Super keen to get back in the black. The batter rated our best since Bradman, totalling 127 runs at a human average of 31.75 for the series.
Yeah, hopefully can be amongst the runs this week. It's been a little while since I've scored 100.
Smith faced a centre wicket bowl-off between Boxing Day hero Scott Boland and Josh Hazlewood, keen to prove he's over a side strain that sidelined him in Melbourne.
The ball seemed to be coming through quite nicely, so I'm not sure how he's pulled up or how he's going. I'm sure we'll hear more in the next day or so.
England have only lost 3 5-test series here in Australia in the history of the Ashes. Under siege captain Joe Root determined to avoid another whitewash.
As a captain of this team, we are very privileged to get the opportunity to represent our country. We're better than the performances we put in, we all know that, and we've got 2 chances now to try and get something from the rest of this tour.
Bagged both here and back home, Root will make a call on quitting as captain after the series.
That's a distraction that should be around the group, or I should be wasting energy on right now.
Andrew McKinlay, 7 News.
2 more Stars players have tested positive to COVID and have been ruled out of tonight's clash with the Renegades. Top run scorers from yesterday, Joe Clark, and local batter Tom Rogers, the latest, taking the total to 12 players, but the show goes on.
For 8 of your starting 11 players to be ruled out through COVID, I think it's a pretty tough ask for an organisation to be able to put up a good game of cricket. That we're going into this evening with some guys relatively low on confidence and very much low on experience.
I think they'll be hungry to get a result on the board, and yeah, obviously we're happy to be playing and the rest is out of our control.
All the action from the MCG is live and free right here on 7, straight after the news. Ash Barty is embracing the hype as world number 1 and prepares her for her best chance at the Australian Open. The carrot of becoming the first homegrown winner in 44 years is tantalisingly close for the 25-year-old.
Australia's golden girl of tennis on a mission to take out the top prize on home soil.
You have to bring your best time and time again to be able to compete with everyone and give yourself a chance to win the big titles.
The world number 1 and former Big Bash cricketer showed off her sporting skills in practice for the Adelaide International before her campaign to win the Australian Open crown from defending champion Naomi Osaka.
A lot of the time it's about matchups, but for me I'm just trying to be the most complete player I can be and bring the best out of myself.
Also primed to make an impact at Melbourne Park, Alex de Minaur, after one of the biggest victories of his career in Sydney against world number 7 Matteo Berrettini.
Jubilation and the celebration starts for Team Australia.
Look, I'm back. I've worked really hard to be here. I'm in the best shape of my life and I'm ready to have a big year.
He could face some of these big names in his quest. Rafael Nadal and Andy Murray putting any rivalry aside to train together on Rod Laver Arena. They'll start their campaigns here with a warm-up tournament from tomorrow, while world number 28 Grigor Dimitrov wade into the AO's strict vaccination policy. Amid speculation, Novak Djokovic will push for a medical exemption.
Just too much conversations for such a clear rules. That's it. Hopefully things get better and better, and we don't have to go further into those kind of details.
Laura Spurway, 7 News.
Melbourne teenager Josh Giddey has created NBA history, becoming the youngest player to record a triple-double. Giddey had 17 points, 14 assists and 13 rebounds, leading his Oklahoma City Thunder in every major category.
As Giddey operates off the bounce,
as drains to three.
I'm making progress more mentally than physically. Just reading the game, it's slowing down for me a little bit more.
At just 19 years and 84 days old, he beat LaMelo Ball's mark by 56 days, but it wasn't enough as Dallas beat the Thunder 95-86. Liverpool lost a further 3 players along with manager Jurgen Klopp to COVID, but they still led Chelsea 2-0 at Stamford behind Premier League leaders Manchester City. And NFL fans were left stunned when Buccaneers star Antonio Brown quit mid-game. The wide receiver has a checkered history, most recently lying about his vaccination status. And this morning he stripped and walked off against the Jets in Tampa's 4-point win.
He is no longer a Buck. All right, that's the end of the story.
You know, we want to see him be at his best, and, you know, unfortunately won't be with our team.
Meanwhile, Philadelphia quarterback Jalen Hurts narrowly avoided a collapsing stand as he headed into the tunnel following the Eagles' 20-16 win over Washington. It's a rather bizarre way to wrap up sport.
Antonio Brown, now that is a dummy spit. Take the gear off and head out.
You wouldn't see that in the AFL, would you? Never.
No. OK, thanks, Jack. Jane is next with the forecast. And Jane, how does it look tomorrow?
Well, Mike, a cloud increases, but it is mostly dry. Then on Wednesday, we turn stormy. The full details are next.
Rebecca Madden comes home. Back to 7 News. Join Rebecca Madden with Mike Amor on 7 News, Wednesday at 6.
Hello again. After 4 days of 30 degrees or higher, we have a cool breeze blowing through. Today only reached 20 and the wind made it feel like 15 or 16 for much of the time. Now this is the bottom of the roller coaster. We'll head upwards again for the next few days. There was cloud at first covering the city and much of the Melbourne area, but that all cleared out to bright sunshine this afternoon and the cooler wind made it warmer away from the bay. Yarra Glen was 5 degrees higher than the city. There is a large area of low cloud over Gippsland, mainly east of Sale, and that'll impact more of the south tomorrow. A trough in the northeast corner let thunderstorms develop this afternoon. It was only a light spit on the plains. The far eastern ranges had their heaviest storms. There they are. Ex-cyclone Seth near Brisbane will be a big feature of our weather in coming days. Tomorrow, the high begins to form this jelly bean shape. You can see it just in through there around the trough. Then tropical moisture will pour down into that trough line in here, producing our first proper rain in nearly a month. Tomorrow, just getting started. Cloud and drizzle spreads back westwards across the south, while thunderstorms continue only here up on the eastern ranges. The biggest thing we'll notice is that humidity will increase. And then there's proper rain. Showers and thunderstorms on Wednesday, Thursday and Friday as well. The activity is widespread, so most areas will see at least a little bit. And if there's a storm overhead, it is heavy rain underneath. Around the nation tomorrow, powerful surf in Brisbane and Sydney thanks to the remains of that cyclone. But Brisbane, Sydney and Canberra look generally dry. Cloudy in Hobart, a dry day, then drizzly there later. Adelaide mild with lots of sunshine. Perth has the heat. To Victoria, cloud from Gippsland that'll spread across the rest of the south thanks to winds turning southeasterly. Drizzly near the coast, while the trough brings showers and thunderstorms only here on the eastern ranges. The north remains warm and generally sunny. Closer in, the morning does look grey. We'll have a local drizzle mainly in the west. That cloud breaks up to pockets of sunshine in the afternoon, and so temperatures rise a few degrees on today. But a cloud does return at night and we'll have more spots of drizzle. The city rises to 24 in those afternoon sunny breaks, but the morning is grey and cloud returns again later into the evening as it turns quite muggy, so it won't cool down. To the 8-day outlook from Wednesday through to Friday, we are humid, very, very humid. There's the potential for heavy storms. Now, it's not wet all the time, but the activity should be widespread. So most of us will see at least a few showers. Others could have a few heavy thunderstorms. And it's all these 3 days through here. So 5 to 10 millimetres, that's the bottom of the total there. 30 or more is the top end of that range. Now, it does cool off on Saturday. The humidity will disappear down to 21. It's a grey morning with areas areas of drizzle. It dries up during the afternoon. We'll peak again Sunday into Monday, 25 and then 26. Sunshine does return, no longer humid. They'll be the pleasant days of the outlook. Then there could be a cooler change coming through next Tuesday. So tomorrow morning it is grey, but we'll rise to 24 in the afternoon, sunny breaks. Then potentially stormy from Wednesday onwards, Mike.
Now, Jane, I don't want to blame you, but we had great weather while you were away. You come back.
Indeed, and it changes. So we've had high pressure blocking all of that La Nina rain. That is taking a break like I did over Christmas, and instead troughs and tropical moisture. It'll be an interesting few days ahead.
Welcome back, though. Thanks, Jay. Now, let's take a look at what's on for now from the team. Have a great night.